Afternoon to all of you here in the room and behind the screens, and welcome to this late afternoon debate, which is organized by Committee of the Regions. And Committee of the Regions represents the voice of regions and cities in the EU, and it has 329 members. And all from all of 27 EU countries. And among us here we have city councillors, which are Nina Ratilainen from Turku and Sari Rautio from Hämeenlinna, and they are members of the European Committee of the Regions. And it's my honor to welcome Her Excellency, Ms. Olga Dibrova, Ambassador of Ukraine to Finland. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then we also have with us Jaani Pietikäinen from European Investment Bank's Helsinki office. And in coordination with the European Commission, the European Investment Bank is providing more than 2.3 billion to help Ukraine repair the most essential damaged infrastructure and resume critically important projects. This is supported by guarantees from EU budget. And my name is Ulla Karvo, and I work as a manager of EU affairs in Association of Finnish Local and Regional Authorities, shortly in Finnish, Suomen Kuntaliitto. It's always pain to say it in English because people fall asleep in halfway before I finish it. But to get into these issues, why we are here. First of all, European Commission and Government of Ukraine are establishing a Ukraine reconstruction platform to coordinate EU support. Regional and local level will play a significant role in channeling this support. And also the European Committee of the Regions and several organizations representing European municipalities and regions have launched a European alliance to promote the reconstruction of Ukraine. And this is because of, its purpose is to help local level in Ukraine. And Ukraine has suffered massive damages, and at this point, this cruel and pointless war has lasted 6 months, actually 8 years. And there is no end in sight to the war, and Russian missile strikes continue to wreak havoc on civilian targets, like yesterday, unfortunately, and on your Independence Day, it was very sad again. So I would like to start this with the Ambassador and ask you, how do you feel about this? Is it the right time to talk about reconstruction at the moment, or should there be a ceasefire in Ukraine first, or how do you feel about it? Winter is coming, and so could you just tell your mind?
Thank you very much. It's a big pleasure to be here. And first of all, I would like to thank all the Finnish people and also my colleagues, fellow ambassadors, for warm congratulations on the occasion of the Independence Day of Ukraine yesterday. And I would like to especially underline the role of local municipalities because they showed enormous activity in showing blue and yellow all over the country, and we saw it in Turku and in other cities which I visit, and many pictures were sent to our embassy yesterday with a lot of creativity from local governments how to celebrate together with Ukraine. Regarding the reconstruction of Ukraine, first of all, I wouldn't say that there is no end of war in sight, because we are now in a completely different situation that we were half of a year and 1 day ago when the full-scale invasion started. When we compare the number of airstrikes, they are now less, not like 100, not 10 times, but 100 times per day. But of course the Russian side unfortunately does nasty things, and in my communications with media yesterday I said that we are expecting some unpleasant surprises for our Independence Day yesterday, and unfortunately after I've given those interviews these tragic events in Chaplino in the region of Dnipro took place, taking away the lives of 25 people, and among whom 2 kids. But nevertheless, we see from the battlefield and from the different resources that the Russian side is absolutely desperate now. And this is why they continue to resort to different terror acts, like, for example, threatening the whole Europe with Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station by mining it and continuously bombing it, because this is the largest nuclear power station in Europe, and should it explode, it will be 7 times Chernobyl. But this is their way to push us to negotiations. But I would like to emphasize that the only way to provide security, which is essential for the peaceful living in our European home, and also, of course, for rebuilding, is providing the full victory of Ukraine in a military sense. And when I say full, I mean the full restoration of the territorial integrity of Ukraine within internationally recognized borders. All other solutions will be absolutely just a delay of another attack. And as you rightly said, we experienced it since 2014 when we tried negotiations. We tried to and not just us, maybe more than us, our Western partners. They try to pacify Kremlin, and unfortunately we see the tragic result of this kind of action, if not to say inaction. But coming to rebuilding, by the time the complete military victory of the Ukraine is achieved, there is some time because of the time needed for the supply of sophisticated weapons, the time needed so that Lend-Lease starts to work, and it will last for some months, obviously. But there are immediate needs of Ukraine, because Ukrainians are courageous people, not only on the battlefield, but everywhere they are. And people are returning to their homes. The inflows into Ukraine now on our borders are now quite considerable. Of course, people leave and go because they want to see their homes and then return to safe places, because of the vicinity to the front line. And sometimes it is dangerous to come back to Ukraine. For example, what we experienced in the suburbs of Kiev, people were returning but finding grenades in the children's toys, in washing machines, in other home appliances. But many people stay. And there are immediate needs of the Ukrainian people that need to be met for them to survive the winter. And for this, we should not wait, of course, until the full peace, full victory is achieved. And of course, many of these needs are now financed by the budget of Ukraine. But there are quite a few companies who want to be part of success of the Ukrainian of the Ukrainian story. They want to contribute to the survival now and to the victory, full victory later on. Immediate damages, we have no possibility to wait until full ceasefire is achieved. So we are forced to do it right now, and all the help by our allies is very, very valuable. This is the first stage. But the second stage is a big recovery. And when we say recovery and rebuilding, we don't mean just building up the walls and cleaning up, the ruins. For Ukraine, it is a much broader vision, which includes for example, climate change issues, making Ukrainian economy climate friendly, having fulfilled green transition, also using absolutely energy efficient technology. And this is quite the right time to start these discussions now. And if you ask me what were the topics of this majority of the speeches which I made even before summer holidays in Finland, I will answer you that they were regarding rebuilding, because all the associations of Finnish businesses, they are very much interested in participating in the rebuilding. And we have to prepare in a very thorough, in a very detailed way. For example, with Finland, based on our good cooperation in the area of education, and based upon the call of the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, when he was addressing the Finnish Parliament later in spring, we are expecting the lead of the Finnish side in rebuilding the educational sector. But like I said, it's not just building the walls of the school. It is making the school energy efficient. It is making the school very innovative with top technologies. It is making the surroundings of the school very suitable, for living and pleasant for living, according to the very high lifestyle standards. It is also building inside of the school, like furnishing it, making it, a joyful, pleasant place for the kids to stay, but also building the essence of education, modernization of education, and this is basically the topic on which we are working on with Finland already for several years. So, of course, we are in Ukraine aware of security risks, and we don't want companies and people to be at risk, but at least to be very quick on preparation. It's our task today. And I would say, at least in the Finnish business circles, it is very well understood because, we are also relying on the Finnish way of approaching all the projects when Finns have to digest, think, and then produce a wonderful project. So in my work now, at least 50% is devoted to all kinds of business contacts and contacts with the Finnish government regarding rebuilding. And it is the same case regarding our internal work, between Ukrainian ambassadors abroad, Ukrainian municipalities and central government. We are discussing very heavily how we see the future of our country and how we should prepare. And the result of this preparation is already available for everyone. This is the National Recovery Plan, which Ukrainian authorities presented during the recovery conference in Lugano. It is available. It is a big plan which is designed for 10 years and basically every area is described in detail. So this is the document to work upon.
Okay, thank you for the accurate picture. And for the audience, I have to tell that we agreed that she will tell us a little bit broader answer for my question. So that was very good. Thank you for us to start now after this, more or less. And one thing is that since it will be very difficult or not possible to make Russia accountable for these destructive actions, and it seems now that EU countries have to bear the main responsibility for repairing the damage. So is there some negotiations or ideas to get US or China or some other parties to get involved with the reconstruction? First of you, please.
The vision of Ukraine, how rebuilding should be, it should absolutely include all our partners who helped us to win this war. And this is the essential thought, who and what companies we should include in rebuilding process. So everyone is welcome, everyone who helped us to survive, to win, should share the success story and also should use the opportunities that arise from the rebuilding of Ukraine, because the scale of destructions is immense. Even if we speak about educational institutions, it is already now more than 1,200 educational institutions that are either completely destroyed or damaged. And we are speaking about a big range, starting from preschool, from kindergartens, and ending up with universities. Some we just don't know because we do not have access to the occupied territories. And just think about Mariupol, which population exceeded 400,000 inhabitants. I don't know that. I don't think that Europe has an experience of rebuilding such a big city. So the scale will be absolutely unprecedented. And we thought in Ukraine how we should approach this rebuilding. And first approach was we should approach geographically. For example, Finland should be allocated one region and take the lead of rebuilding the whole region. But then when we have been discovering the scale of destructions more and more, it is obvious that this scale requires partnerships and requires engagement of different countries. So more allies, their larger participation in rebuilding is most welcome, absolutely. But only those who helped us.
Thank
and
you.
Continue to help.
So how about Sari and Nina? How is it, our city councillors, how do you see it? What kind of the role like Turku or Hämeenlinna can have in this helping Ukrainian regions and cities and municipalities? How about Sari?
Yeah, thank you, Ulla, and thank you, Mr. Ambassador. A very interesting and clear view of what is happening, and I really wish that soon will be the day when we can start to rebuild in a peaceful way. But I totally agree that at the moment we have to do already. In my home city, Hämeenlinna, there were a bunch of women singing Ukrainian songs in front of our church, and we actually celebrated also. So I can say that has made a big it's been a big thing for me to see how important for the normal Finns it is to help Ukrainian people, and I think that is something very special. And when we go to local and regional authorities, cities such as Turku and Hämeenlinna, I think this is something very new. That we can actually see that people understand that we have to work not only on the governmental level but also on the local level. And there was not one word that said we shouldn't do that when Hämeenlinna and also other towns wanted to, already in the beginning of the war, to donate money and open our homes and make the Ukraine centrums and do all various different kinds of actions. And I think that is very important. Because people really we need the small deeds and then the big things, and that is what we have to do. And there was a good idea also in the Committee of the Regions of this, having a twin regions or twin cities. But I think that perhaps it's a good way that we find, as you mentioned, that when we find common interests. So I think education is very good thing and very, very easy thing, I think, for Finland to start to work with Ukrainians. So I think it's the common interests, it's important also. And when it comes to from people to people, I think that is something cities are very much involved in. Yeah. So I think in Turku you have done also a lot of things.
I do think we have similar experiences, and I want to thank Your Excellency for coming to our beautiful city of Turku and for your work. And I'm really glad that you were able to attend yesterday the celebration of Ukrainian people in Turku. It was really happy events and lots of love and happiness towards the independence of Ukraine. So I'm glad for that. And as Sari said, I think also in Turku and in all the cities of Finland, we have really felt the solidarity of the citizens, city councillors, regional councillors, and companies, and people have really wanted to take action. In this sense, I think the local and regional actors are the most important ones, perhaps, to collect people and give them means to cooperate when they want to participate in our reconstruction and solidarity towards Ukrainian cities and the administration, because we are the most closest to the people. So I really think that cities are quite crucial. When it comes to cooperation in reconstruction, cities have participated already a lot, and I hopefully will do so in future, and I'm sure that my city of Turku and Hämeenlinna also want to set experience in this for sure. But besides reconstruction of the buildings and roads and logistics, I think we have to bear in mind the reconstruction of people's minds and bodies, which is equally important. The society, the culture, and that is something that we can already start to do in here with the people we have in here, the Ukrainians who had to flee to our cities. We really have to support them in whichever way and means they want the support to have. And I think the key and the clue is that we as Finnish municipalities and regions really listen to Ukrainian cities and people who have fled here and what are their needs, and try to follow that.
Yeah, it's very important for a local level to keep this war in mind, that we are not getting used to it and forgetting or something like that. So we have to keep it up all the time. But since we have also here the European Investment Bank representative, so we are going to watch a short video now, and let's see what the European Investment is, what it has been a European Investment Bank's role in Ukraine's reconstruction after the war started in Donbas region 2014. Now many of these EIB supported projects are either destroyed or remain in Russian controlled areas. But let's see how the video shows us the thing.
The early recovery program in Ukraine was set up in September 2015 after the Minsk II ceasefire agreement. It was targeted on the east of Ukraine, the areas which had suffered under the fighting. So we were repairing damaged schools, hospitals, kindergartens, community centres. So my role as a contact person was to go and visit these projects and also to monitor the projects during construction to make sure they were being built to an adequate standard. Just before the invasion this year, it was actually quite a nice place. I look forward to going there. The roads were good, had many restaurants and bars. Mariupol was actually a very nice city. Same with Kramatorsk and Severodonetsk. People were starting to be happy. These projects were becoming largely implemented. We've finished over 100 projects and the other 150 are in various stages of construction. So it's very sad to see these being destroyed, particularly with the equipment as well, because it brought so much hope and for the local people to see they were being their needs were being attended to. So it's very sad to see this happening. The Mariupol Library and IT Centre has now been destroyed. All the computers have been taken away, the roofs are down, its windows are smashed. We have over 150 projects now in the Russian army-controlled zones. 50 projects been damaged. Half of those have been completely ruined. The EIB are not abandoning Ukraine. We're there for the long haul. As our president said, you know, we can rebuild. We're ready to implement recovery programs together with Ukraine going forward. So there's a lot of hope there.
It's a hope what people need, and at the moment the essential infra must be in the picture, in the big picture. Jani, what are your thoughts after watching this clip? Could you tell us about the EIB's current investments and initiatives in Ukraine?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the possibility to be part of the panel today. I think after the video, I mean, there isn't really that much to say because it very much highlights the situation. But what we have done and what we will do in 3 points. We have been working with Ukraine since 2007. We have financed 54 projects for a total amount of over 7 billion. And we stepped up our intervention already in 2014 after the events in Crimea. Then after the invasion earlier this year, we had our short-term interventions. We have provided around 2 billion sort of urgent liquidity to Ukraine to meet the government's daily needs, which we have done through repurposing our existing loans. So this is the short-term solution. Then, in the longer term, we are ready, of course, to play a key role in the EU's joint effort in Ukraine. As Ukraine has chosen its European path and has applied for EU membership, it is natural that the EU and the European Commission is ready to play a key role in the reconstruction efforts. And of course, the basis of that reconstruction is the National Recovery Plan that was presented in Lugano. And we, the EIB, through our development bank subsidiary operating outside the European Union, EIB Global, is the EU's bank. We are the financing arm that provides the long-term financing for the walls, for the infrastructure, for energy networks, roads, schools, and other municipal infrastructure. And there, of course, everybody is welcome to join in the efforts to help the municipalities to plan the projects. There we need European municipalities. We need technical assistance funds from the member states and from the Commission. And then, of course, for substantial loan amounts, we need the support of the European Union and its member states. And therefore, in Lugano, the bank's president proposed a new trust fund, the EU-Ukraine Gateway Trust Fund, which would provide investment grants and guarantees to loans that would be granted for the reconstruction of Ukraine. And we welcome all EU member states to participate, and the initiative is open also for non-EU partners, countries, and financial institutions. And also we want to work closely with the other development banks that operate in Ukraine.
So is it, do you have a possibility to help already now in the short term, like coming winter, or is it a little bit further on timeline?
The two altogether 2.3 billion euros. Majority of those funds have already been dispersed.
Okay.
So it is the funds are available or have been available already earlier this year. So therefore we can offer support for the short-term liquidity needs. And then, of course, as an investment bank, our key role is to rebuild the infrastructure and green transition, innovation, support to SMEs, so the full spectrum, very much in line with the national recovery plan.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting and really important that there is this like the big picture of the National Recovery Plan. Even though I mentioned earlier that it's important that we find the partners who have a common interest. It's very important that we build the same puzzle, so to say. Yeah. And I think it's very important, as you mentioned, that it's really clear, the big picture, and 10 years timeline is probably we have to go even further. And I'm really happy that you mentioned also the climate change and the big transition, since the thing is so bad. Yes, yeah, it's here. So why not to make it even better for the future? So I think this is something we can really find good cooperation also between Finnish municipalities. As you know, in Finland we are very supporting really strongly the big the green transition, and also the municipalities are actually working even more than the government. I dare to say the plans in many cities and municipalities are further, and so I think that this is also something interesting that where we can actually find good ways to cooperate, and also the citizens level, not to forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I would like to join my colleagues by also absolutely agreeing with the fact that it's about people-to-people contacts which are essential. And when we discussed the war in Ukraine and the prospects within the EuroCity conference which took place in Espoo, sorry, I'm bad with timing now, but I think in summer or late spring. It was a special session with the participation of mayors of European cities on how they helped Ukraine, and a representative of Kharkiv. And everyone agreed that the first response came from the twin cities. And it was actually my essential intention even before the war, but as the war started, it became even stronger to enlarge the network of twin cities. And I'm very happy that with Turku we are already two mayors will be signing the agreement on cooperation. There are already several other projects on the go, and I hope Hämeenlinna will join. But regarding the rebuilding, it's of course the central government that will be doing the planning, but implementation, resources, human, natural, it's on the heads of the on the shoulders of the local government. And with the decentralization reform in Ukraine, which was quite intensively ongoing before the war, local governments, local municipalities are much more powerful now. And regarding immediate needs, I would like to make an example, very recent one, which was announced today by Espoo. I proposed a partner for Espoo and spoke with the mayor of that city, and they said a very practical problem. The city borders on the front line, and they have 60,000 IDPs, especially from the south, which is now under occupation. It means around 15 or 20,000 families. And because it is dangerous to go to school for the kids, it is important that they start with the Ukrainian school online, which was developed, by the way, with the help of Finland during the pandemic time. But what is needed is computers, because of course when people are fleeing, it's good when they had one suitcase in their hands, because many were just running away without anything. And Espoo today announced their 50,000 euros of help for the purpose to assist the distance learning of children. But this is, for example, which I never thought about myself. But the local municipalities, they know about this need and many others. So that's how cooperation between local municipalities becomes practically important.
Yeah, this is a very important discussion, because in Finland we have been discussing about this twinning and twin cities, and it was kind of fading away with some areas, and this crisis really bring it up, the whole thing again, and it's very, very nice and a good thing, and we have to modernize it and find different ways to do it practical and important for both sides, to culturally and in different ways to help people to get to know each other and cultures. But since we don't have too much time to left, I go to the last part, and what we were planning to think about is this future in EU. So Ukraine has been granted EU candidate status, and I would like to ask our politicians here, in what time frame do you see that EU membership could be realistic? And is the EU ready to absorb new members? And as we have been talking about it, that reconstruction will take a long time, and how it affects this EU membership. What do you want to start, Nina?
Yes, well, first of all, in the European Committee of the Regions, we have, of course, discussed about this issue already before February, and worked with the Eastern Partnership a lot, and in a cooperation also between the Ukrainian and Finnish cities, because there has been such a good cooperation and peer-to-peer learning even before about decentralization and transparency and the green transition in future, perhaps even more. So. Well, difficult questions about timing, about this issue altogether, as soon as possible, I would hope so. And I think that perhaps as municipalities can also have a role in this, because we can, as said before, work together to to aid Ukrainian cities to develop the things that they really want to and need to in terms of EU criteria. And as our excellent speaker just said, that I think in 2 hours' time we will be signing the new twin city contract between city of Turku and city of Kharkiv, which I'm really, really pleased and our whole city is really happy about. And for us, this is a new twin city relationship, but something that when we got the suggestion of Kharkiv for our city, it was quite soon that we realized that there's so much potential for us to learn also from this cooperation when there's two cities that have lots of culture and education and really similarities and maybe a common goal on how to develop after we can decide for ourselves how we develop our cities. So I should hope that quite soon, and in the Committee of the Regions and as municipalities, we can also give a hand in this.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Yes, I totally agree that we municipalities can give a hand on this. But I believe in the strategic planning. And as you have made already this big picture for the recovery, I think that is something that should be done. And what is going to happen anyway, since Ukraine is now granted as a EU candidate status. So I think this is a big thing, and because we are serious about this, then you have to make a decent plan and make the steps and count from. Okay, so here Ukraine is full member state, and what has to be done before that? So we have to count backwards, and then just to make it done. Not speeches are very important, but then we of course have to also make the deeds. And I'm really looking forward of changing the whole European Union more closer to citizens. And perhaps this might be also, as Nina very wisely mentioned, that this is also a possibility for us to learn. So I think that is way learning together, and then perhaps before 2030 will be long before that. If I dare to say, if the things are happening, I think, because we have also, if you talk about democracy also, we have problems also in the old European Union countries. Absolutely. So I think this is a possibility that there is always, even in this terrible war, perhaps the good thing is that we finally realize how important it is to take care of the human values and democracy and working together. So,
education.
Yes. So I have hope. Yes.
Maybe just a short comment from the bank side. Almost 70% of EIB's lending in the Eastern Partnership region has gone to Ukraine so far, and the majority of that overall has gone to the three countries that have signed the association agreement: Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. So therefore, now that Ukraine will become a candidate, is a candidate country, there of course, closer integration to the Union means more activity from the EU's bank. So therefore, of course, this will also should play a role in the process. But as of course, it is up to the member states and the Commission to deal with the political issues.
Yes, and of course, reconstruction now is the most important thing. And okay, first of all, we have to get through this winter. Even in Europe, EU, we have to get through this winter, and it's not going to be easy. And but together we must find the ways to survive with this energy, and because this war affects the whole world. It's just not the EU or something, but with your grain and all the wheat and everything, it's just affecting everything. So we short term we have to just get through this first step, and then and we have to get this reconstruction on the way and do it. So, but now I have to say it's a late afternoon, and it's we are running out of time, and so I really have to thank our panelists, and most happy that you have been here with us, and we have gotten your great views. And we thank you, audience, being here. And since the time is ending, we can't have any questions from the audience. But thank you for being part of it, and have a nice evening.